Hi, I'm Bill Ritchie again, and I'm picking up where I left off on how I was inspired by the Kahn Academy videos to take up the subject of teaching art online from an art professor. I opened up my talk yesterday with pointing out that the professor's brain is like a pickle jar, let's say, with the professor's brain in here, all wrinkly and curly, And from this brain in the jar, 4 electrodes were coming out. They were inside. They were attached to the brain, and into 4 areas in the brain. And then these electrodes were connected in my cartoon to, in this case, a mobile device of some kind, a smartphone. And I had an image of a woman looking at this smartphone at the ideas that I was putting down. And of course, she's really delighted. You can see by that smile on her face. Wow. So I started with that, and I never counted what these 4 things were, but I'll tell you now that they represent what Dr. Stephen Covey called the 4 aspects of the human person. That is their emotional self, their social emotional self, their physical self, their mental self, and their spiritual self. Now, these aren't separate entities. They're, of course, all kind of working together in some kind of balance if you're a balanced person. So that was my lecture yesterday, and so today I thought I would start with a completely new part of my college teaching experience and how I arrived at 10 components. I'll make this screen larger. The 10 components, again, using the professor's brain in a jar as my metaphor. Here's the brain, all wrinkled. But now I'm going to have 10 of these electrodes, 10 of these sections. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That comes from an experience I had when I was a university professor, and I wondered why was it that some of my students, about 10% of them, were pretty successful in the first 10 or 20 years of their careers. And I decided that it was owing to their participation in 10 different elements, not just the curriculum that the university recommended through their enlightened history of teaching art or about art, majoring, for example, in painting or printmaking or video or computers as separate fields. But they these particular students participated in several overlapping fields. And I decided there were really 10 things that made the successful student. One was their familiarity with digital media now and in the future. And I called that ArtsPort. I gave it a name. It was a reference to the portal or the entryway into the digital arts of the future. Another thing that distinguished these students was their use of electronics, and I call that e-studios. The third thing was their familiarity with working fast, and I gave it my own name based on a famous fast food, McRitchie's Fast Art. The third one was open studios. They were very hospitable. Those students were so generous with their time. They opened their studios to visitors. We had open studios in school and so forth. The next thing was my own invention called the Perfect Press. And at the time I was referring to it as a printing press. What would be the best thing, the best way to come up with a perfect printing press? That had some unusual outcomes. The sixth thing was the perfect studios. And that idea was based on the hospital. The teaching hospital at the University of Washington was renowned for its practices, its teaching, its research, and its services. And that gave me the idea of perfect studios. Also, what's called a teaching company. The seventh thing was the thing I call the RISMA, a long name, a long acronym for Ritchie's International Interactive Studios for the Media Arts, or Studies for the Media Arts. It was kind of a think tank. The next thing was Speak On, which stands for Speaking and Consulting. The students that I had the most fun with was their willingness to speak in public and to consult with people and to be advisors and teachers. So I gave that the category called Speak On. The next one, next to the last one, the ninth one, is video. Most of these students participated in video art. It was a new thing in the 1970s, and they were willing to come and throw caution to the wind and try to make art with video. The last thing was that the video could be combined with printmaking. Printmaking was my main field. That's why I was hired to teach at the UW. It was for printmaking, but I branched out, and what happened was that we began making prints that were based on video. So it was sort of like coming full circle, starting with printmaking, going through video, and then coming back to print. So we would make a image with a video system and then come back and turn it into an etching or a lithograph or a woodcut or whatever. It's very common today, but at that time it was unheard of. Well, that about wraps up my background, or my main college teaching profile. Having started out in the 1960s as a conventional teacher of printmaking, but branching out and then looking back after 20 years at what was the best thing I found when I taught college, and that was that there are 10 components. I set out then to establish the rest of my life's career on continuing to practice those 10 items, and if it works out, teach them online and in connection with a printing press. The final word is that this part here, the professor's brain, is in what I call the press ghost. It's a little 4 gigabyte memory chip that I'm embedding in the etching presses that I designed, called the half-wood presses. But that's another story. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Bill Ritchie. Goodbye.